Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be my spoiler-free movie review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This was one of my most anticipated movies of 2023, and I am so glad that I got to see it last night at the Toronto premiere. At my screening, we even got a free IMAX poster for Guardians 3. I really love this poster. It looks pretty cool. I'm probably gonna frame it up and put it in the home theater. I'm a huge fan of the Guardians movies, and every single one of them is great. And I think this one might even be my favorite out of the trilogy, which is crazy because I love the previous two films. I am planning on making a ranking video for the three movies either today or tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I saw this movie in IMAX a week early. It was a great time, and watching this movie in IMAX with hundreds of other Marvel fans just made the whole experience just even better. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive right into the review. So what is this movie about? And that's a really interesting question because the trailers do a really good job at hiding what the actual story is of this movie. I'll just go ahead and read you guys the synopsis for this movie. So it says, in Marvel Studios' Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, our beloved band of misfits are looking a bit different these days. Peter Quill, still reeling from the loss of Gamora, must rally his team around him to defend the universe along with protecting one of their own. A mission that, if not completed successfully, could quite possibly lead to the end of the Guardians as we know them. So that is a pretty vague explanation right there. Like, basically the Guardians are trying to save one of their members, and the villain of this movie is the High Evolutionary, and Adam Warlock is in this movie too. That's really all they tell you in the trailer. And that's all I'm gonna tell you because this is a spoiler-free review, of course. Now, I will be talking about what this movie's actually about in my spoiler review. Okay guys, so how I like to structure my movie reviews is first talking about the positives, then the negatives, then giving you guys a rating out of 10 at the very end. So let's go ahead and start off with the positives. So my first positive is the story. It's a super emotional one, and there were multiple times in the movie where I was getting choked up and had tears in my eyes. Not full on crying, but I was super close a bunch of different times. There is just some really sad and disturbing parts to this film, and watching them, I was like just squirming in my seat. I really like that this movie really focused on the Guardian story and not the whole MCU, because that's a problem that we've been seeing with a lot of recent projects, especially Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That movie was literally just like a trailer for Kang Dynasty at this point, and it really hurt that movie. Like, the story just wasn't that great. But I'm glad to say with Guardians 3, there is basically no mention of any MCU stuff. It is literally just a Guardian story. And more specifically, it is a Rocket Raccoon story. Now, James Gunn said that Rocket is the focal point of the whole Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and after watching this movie, I 100% agree. And it makes the whole rewatchability of 1 and 2 even better because now you know the overarching story that is centered around Rocket Raccoon and I guess Star-Lord too. Overall though, the story was very, very good. It's really emotional, it's really disturbing. You just get so invested in the whole narrative, and I think a lot of people are gonna really like this film due to that strong story. My next positive is balance and team dynamic, because of course this is a team-based movie because the Guardians has multiple members, and James Gunn does a great job with this again. He is just known for ensemble films at this point, like Guardians of the Galaxy, the Suicide Squad. He just knows how to put multiple different characters together in a cohesive story, and he gives everyone their moment to shine. It's not like some people got pushed to the sidelines or anything. Like, literally everyone had fantastic moments. Even characters like Cosmo and Kraglin, who aren't necessarily like the main characters of a Guardians of the Galaxy film, but they have some awesome moments. And a lot of these moments are highlights of the film. After you watch it, you're always going to remember those parts. So great job once again, James Gunn, on directing a great team film. Now, my next positive is the action in this film, and I would say it has the best action out of the whole trilogy. There is some really unique fight scenes in this movie, and there's some super epic ones. There was this amazing hallway fight scene that I will never forget, and after this scene happened, my crowd just erupted, like just screaming, clapping. It was so good. Like I said, I think this movie has the best action out of all of the Guardians movies, and that's saying a lot because 1 and 2 had some great scenes as well, and the fact that this topped it, and by a lot, is pretty crazy. My next positive is the pacing. I thought everything flowed really well. Yeah, there were a couple of scenes that slowed down just a little bit, but it wasn't enough to be like, okay, like, let's get a move on, skip this, get out of the way. And this movie's pretty long too. It's about 2.5 hours, so if the pacing wasn't good, you would feel it. And the fact that you don't means that it's paced really well. Now we gotta talk about the villain in this movie, which is the High Evolutionary, the guy who made Rocket Raccoon's childhood a living nightmare. This guy is an absolute menace. You want to see this guy get destroyed. You will hate him, there's no redeeming qualities, and you can't empathize with this guy. He is just a straight up over-the-top villain. Basically what he wants to do is he wants to create the perfect species and society by trial and error, and Rocket Raccoon was part of his early experiments. The movie shows you through flashbacks just how big of a monster he is by showing all of his animal abuse, and just how bad he was to Rocket. A lot of these moments were really tough to watch, and if you have pets, you will definitely be squirming in your seat, a little more than someone who maybe doesn't have a pet, because in my opinion, you see Rocket almost through the lens of your own pet. These flashback scenes to Rocket's childhood, where the High Evolutionary is experimenting on him and everything, were just so sad and disturbing. And there's a lot of body horror in this movie too, and man, it just irks me, you know? I don't even use that word, irks, and it just really was unsettling at some moments. And that's what just really made me hate this guy. Like, looking at what he's doing from the perspective of a pet owner, it was just so messed up, you know? Like, just seeing the eyes of Rocket Raccoon as a little baby, and seeing him all scared and everything, I was like, oh man, somebody beat the crap out of the High Evolutionary and just take this guy down. Chukwudi Iwuji was fantastic in the role of the High Evolutionary, and he really got into this role. Like, I felt that performance. So I really liked the villain in this movie and how he tied into the whole backstory of Rocket Raccoon. I thought it was done really well. Now we gotta talk about comedy, because that is something that the Guardians films are known for. I was constantly laughing in this movie, and I would say like 90% of the comedy hit for me. Yeah, there were a couple of moments where maybe there was a joke said and I didn't necessarily laugh, but I would say the majority of them I definitely did. There's some really well-written humor, and then there's just some dumb humor too, and I thought both of them worked really well, especially for me because I like both. There's also the MCU's first F-bomb in this movie, and it is just so funny in that scene. My entire audience just lost it when it was spoken, and the fact that I laughed so much in this movie but felt so emotional during the movie at the same time is pretty crazy. Like I was saying earlier, this is a very emotional, sad, and disturbing movie, but then at the same time it's really comedic, so like one scene you're on the verge of tears, and then the next scene you're laughing hysterically. It was a really weird blend, but I thought it worked, and it was really interesting to feel all of those emotions flying around. Happy, sad, happy, sad, happy, sad. Just a wild experience watching this movie. My next positive is the visuals. This was definitely one of the most polished MCU movies in the last little while. For example, Spider-Man No Way Home, a movie that I absolutely love, didn't have the greatest VFX. Like, a lot of the shots looked really rushed and unfinished. Same goes for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The visuals weren't the greatest, but I'm glad to say Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the VFX, the visuals, the cinematography, all of the visual components of this movie were done fantastically. And some of the IMAX shots look so damn good, and there was some really amazing and unique locations in this movie too, like the organic space prison, Nowhere, Counter Earth. The movie just looked incredible overall, and I'm glad that I didn't have to talk badly about VFX for once. My next positive is the new costumes that the Guardians get. It is very comic accurate. I really like the design. I think everyone looks great in these costumes, and I am definitely going to be getting a bunch of different Hot Toys from this movie. I just really like these costumes. They are just so damn good. One thing I will say though is that yes, everyone looks great in these new suits, but one thing that I noticed was that Star-Lord doesn't wear his helmet in this movie, which is a huge letdown, because me personally, I really love that helmet that he wears in the movies. It's just something really unique to Star-Lord and makes him just look really cool and badass, and they had the perfect opportunity to give him the comic book accurate helmet too, but they just didn't do that for some reason, which I thought was kind of odd, and they never explained like if his helmet was destroyed or whatever. He just doesn't wear it for whatever reason in this movie. But yeah, those were all of my positives in this movie. Now let's go ahead and move on to the negatives, and honestly there's not really a lot of them. My first negative is the ending. It just didn't end the way I thought it was gonna end, but overall the climax of this movie was satisfying. I just wanted a little bit more. It wraps up a lot of our characters' stories, but it also sets up some really interesting stuff down the line for the Guardians. And who's on that Guardians team? I don't know. That would be a spoiler. I'm obviously not gonna tell you. But yeah, they do set up some really cool stuff for the future. But overall, the ending for me was not as good as I was hoping. But maybe after a rewatch, I might like it a little bit more. I don't really know. I'm going to see the movie again next week, so maybe my opinion will change. I don't know. But as of right now, the ending was my least favorite act of the movie. My second and last negative, which is crazy because normally, you know, if movies have like 3 or 4 negatives, this one really only has 2 and they're not that big, is Adam Warlock. He didn't really have that much screen time and didn't really do all that much either, but the parts that he was in were super entertaining. Like the first scene you see him in is fantastic. It's one of the best scenes of the movie. It really establishes him as a threat, and it was just an epic scene overall, but after that, he just kind of pops up here and there, but hopefully he has a major role in the future of the MCU. So guys, those were my positives and negatives. Now let's go ahead and rate this movie out of 10. I am going to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 a 9 out of 10. This is a fantastic movie. This is my favorite in the whole Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. James Gunn did a fantastic job directing this one. It is a beautiful movie with a very emotional story, and it is the final movie with the current Guardians of the Galaxy team, so it's going to be a very sentimental film for a lot of people too. And I would say this thing is special. Like, a lot of people are saying it's a top 5 MCU movie, and I don't know if I'm there just yet. I think I need to watch it at least one more time to get like my true feelings about this movie, but as of right now, I really enjoyed it. I would say it's definitely in my top 10 favorite MCU films. It just elevates everything you like about the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, and I think Marvel fans, Guardians fans, and just general fans are gonna really like this thing. One other thing I want to mention before we end the video here is that there are 2 post-credit scenes, and I would say they're both pretty important for the future of this franchise, so make sure you stay seated once the actual movie is done. But yeah guys, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is a fantastic movie, and you should definitely go see it. It's a self-contained movie within the MCU, and it doesn't really connect to the broader multiverse saga story, which works to its advantage, and I think almost all of the MCU movies should be like this. Have a movie that focuses on its own story and not setting up 100 others. This is the best movie in the Guardians trilogy in my opinion, and the Guardians of the Galaxy have one of the best trilogies in any movie franchise ever in my opinion. That's it from me today. Thank you for watching. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Other than that, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.